Hey everyone, welcome back to Ayaz. Today we are diving into a common challenge in Angular development, how to efficiently share HTTP responses using RxJS. We will be using the Json Placeholder API in our example so you can follow along and see everything working in real time. We will work with practical example, a user management system where different components need to access and display user data. You will learn how to prevent unnecessary API calls and keep your data in sync across components. First, we will understand the problem. To understand the problem, I will create a basic service that fetches users from Json placeholder. I will show you the problem that occurs when we don't handle data sharing properly. So for that, go to your Angular project and generate a service. For that, run the command ng generate as user. So that would generate a user service for us in the app directory. Now we need to inject the HTTP client service, but before doing that, as we are using the latest version of Angular, so we can simply go to the app.config.ts file, and here we have to provide the HTTP client. For that, call the function provide HTTP client in this way, and make sure to import this function from the angular/common/http path. So this would make the HTTP client available throughout our entire application. Once that is done, here first of all I will inject my HTTP client service in this way through the constructor and make sure HTTP client has been imported from this path. And after that, we need to define a function get users. Okay. So also we need to create an interface. So let's do that on the top of this file. So this interface has ID, name, email, phone, and I will export it in case if we need it outside of this service. And now here we are hitting the users endpoint of Json Placeholder API that would return us a response with all of the users. Now we need another Angular component with the name user list. Okay, so run the command ng generate c user list, press enter. Alright, user list component has been generated. After that, we need another component with the name user grid, so press enter. That would also be generated here. Now in the user list, we need to implement the ng on init. So make sure to import the onInit class from angular/core, and here we will add ng on init function in this way. And also we need to inject our newly created service, user service that we just created. For that, create a constructor, and within that we will add private user service. Make sure to add the import statement for the user service. And now in the ng on init, I will call the user service dot get users function dot subscribe. And also I need to create a variable or property of this component, that is users is equal to array, and I can give it the type of user array in this way. Make sure to import the user interface that we created earlier in the user.service. And once that is done, we can add our callback function in this subscribe function, and we will be getting the users as the response. So we will set the users to our users array of this component, and also I will display the console log saying user list component fetching the users. Okay, now let's copy all of this code because it is going to be same in the different component in the user grid dot component .ts. So I will paste it as it is, and here I will implement the on init class and make sure to add all of the missing import statements. Okay, all right. So here, instead of showing the console user grid user list, I will show user grid component fetching users. Okay, now we have to display the users somewhere in the HTML of both components. For that, I will add a heading first, users, and here I will display users JSON pipe. Okay, so to make the JSON pipe available in the imports array, I need to add common module in the imports array of both of these components. So let's add it here in the user list as well. Okay, make sure to add the import statement for it from angular/common. Okay, now I will just copy paste this HTML into the user list component, save it, and Now in the app.component.ts, I will make both of these components available in this component so that we could use them in the HTML. So for that, import both of these components in this imports array, user grid component and user list component, like this. Now we don't need the router outlet at the moment, so I'm just going to remove it, and here I will remove everything from in the HTML. Here I will just add both components, user list and user grid. Okay, save it. And now here in the HTML, this is what you see. Actually, let's go to the user grid, and here I will change the heading users from user grid just to differentiate in the UI. Similarly here, users from users list. Okay, great. So now let's go to the inspect element and go to the network and reload it. Click on the fetch XHR, and here you will see that it is hitting the backend API. It will hit the backend API for getting the users twice because we are trying to get users in both of these components. So you can see all of the data is printed here for both components. So that is working, but this is not what we want. Each component is triggering its own API call, which is inefficient and could lead to inconsistencies. Now we will implement the shareReplay solution. So let's fix this by implementing a proper caching solution with shareReplay. Now let's go to the user service, and on the top I will simply add private read-only users $ is equal to this.http.get, pass the type. Actually this would be exactly same, so I'm just going to copy this. Okay, now after that we need to call the pipe function that is available on the response of this function call pipe, and within that pipe we will have to pass the operators from RxJS. By the way, we are creating this code or this variable because this will create a shared cached streams of users. Okay, so in the pipe function I will first cache the latest response and share it. For that we will call the operator shareReplay. Make sure to import it from RxJS in this way, and now call it, and within that function I will pass an object. First property would be buffer size of 1, and second property would be ref count is equal to true. So the meaning of buffer size 1 means only store most recent value. Okay, and the ref count means clean up when no subscribers left. Okay, now let's add some logging to see what's happening. So after this operator I will add another RxJS operator, tap. Make sure to import the tap operator from RxJS and call it along with the callback function that would be getting the users from the backend. And here we will show console.log API call made. Okay, so I have added the date to local time string. So every time it hits the backend, it will show this log that API call was made along with the time that when it was made. Now in the get users, instead of hitting the API every time, we will simply return the reference of this dot users. Okay, now we will update our components to use this new implementation. So go to the users list.component.ts, and here instead of this I will replace it with the users $ is equal to this dot user service. Okay, here this dot user service dot get users. Call this function and the response would be saved in the users property. So this get users function is returning the this dot users. Okay, now I don't need this ng in it, so I will just get rid of that and remove this part as well, and remove all of the unused imports. Go to the users list.component.html. Here I will add some elements like div user dash list and then h2 actually, and add div. Within we will need another div with the class user dash item. Okay, and after this div we need a button with refresh users. Okay, and also on this div we need to add ng if users $ is available to use, and then if user $ pipe async as users. Okay, so we just renamed this variable to users, and we are using the async pipe, so it will automatically subscribe and get the data. And once we get the data, it will contain array directly into it without needing to use the subscribe function. So here on this div I will add ng for let user of users, and now within this div I will add h3 tag h3, and here we will print the user dot name, and then we need the p tag, we will print the user dot email. Okay, and on this button click we need to call a function refresh. Okay, and go to the component ts file, we will define this missing function refresh this dot user service refresh users. Okay, we did not define this function yet, so we will go to our service and add this missing function. Okay, so copy the name of the function, go to the user dot service, and here let's define it. Okay, in the refresh users function I will call another function that we will now create, and that would be this dot get new users stream, and that would give us the response. We will save it in the this dot users. Okay, now let's define this missing function here. Okay, and now we will reuse this piece of code, we will just cut it out from here, and here I will call this dot get new users stream, and we will move that code in this function, and we will return it like this. As we are now updating the users variable, so we should remove the read only from here. Okay, now error is gone, and here I can update the message fresh data fetched. Okay, and in the refresh users function I will add a console.log refreshing users data, and there might be other use cases of this function. For example, maybe you have a function to create a new user with the name create user, that would be getting the user to create. You might be calling the backend API to create that and save that user in the database like this, or you can just use the subscribe like this, and within that subscribe function we need to refresh the users. So we will refresh the list by calling this dot refresh users, that will execute this logic again. Okay, now let's test out our implementation. Now we need to make the same amount of changes in the grid component as well, so I will just copy paste all of this code and paste it here like this, and go to the user list component. We just need to copy this part of code here. I will get rid of all of this code and remove the ng on init implementation, remove the unused imports. Okay, and we don't need the refresh button here. I will just rename it to user grid again. Okay, I will reload it, and you can see that both of these components, user list and user grid, are showing the latest data. Okay, but there is only one API call in our network. So if there are thousands of components that are using this data, there would still be only one single API call. And now go to the console, you will see that fresh data fetched. So fresh data was fetched 2 times, but API was hit only once. Now I will trigger this function refresh users, that would show this log, and that would call this function, and then it will actually hit the backend API and update the cache. So let's do that. I'm going to clear this, hit the refresh user. Let me see, it is not working. It is showing in the console, but it is not hitting the backend API. Okay, one little change that we need to implement is that after this is done, we need to trigger the API call. That would happen only if we subscribe it. So we will call this dot users dot subscribe. Okay, so as soon as this happens, it will trigger it and an API call would be executed. So let's try it. Clear the logs, hit that button, and you will see another API call was made. Okay, it is all the working, but there is problem in this solution as well. There is a chance of memory leak in this as well, because we are subscribing but we are never unsubscribing. Okay, so to make it better. I can create a property with the name subscription. You can import the subscription from RxJS. It should be subscription. And here, every time we subscribe, we will save it in this. But before subscribing, we will try to unsubscribe if it is subscribed earlier. Okay, so here I will add this dot subscription dot unsubscribe. So if subscription was there, then it will unsubscribe to it. Okay, and here we are getting error. You can add question mark here to get rid of this error. That would make it optional, that in the beginning there is no value, so that's why it is showing optional. So now that risk of memory leak is removed. But there is an alternate solution that is more reactive and handles subscriptions more elegantly. So it's up to you that which solution you use. I will just quickly show you how to modify this code to use that other solution. So on the top, I will create a behavior subject to trigger the refreshes. So let's do that. Here I will add private refresh trigger new behavior subject. Okay, by default I gave it undefined value, and let me remove this subscription. We don't need it because we are now implement a different solution, so we can remove this as well for now. And here in the get new users stream, here I will call the function this dot refresh trigger dot pipe. Okay, and we will pass it few options, few operators. First one is switch map, so pass the switch map in this way. Make sure to import the switch map from the RxJS like this. You can remove this unused import, and in this switch map I will use this code. So just cut this out from here and paste it here. Okay, and both of these operators can be moved above. You can just remove them from here and pass them here in this pipe function in this way. Okay, you can make it in one line. Okay, now we have three operators: switch map, shareReplay, and tap. So we added switch map to a new HTTP call whenever refresh is triggered. Everything else would stay same. Now in the refresh users function, we don't need this line as well. Okay, we just need to call this dot refresh trigger dot next. Okay, so this would emit a new value to trigger the refresh. So we are getting this error in our components. So to fix that, okay, we started to get this error in our components. The reason is that in user.service we are calling this function, but we are never returning anything. So return it like this, and this would fix the problem in both of these components. And now it's time to test it. So go back to the browser, go to the inspect element, go to the network, reload it once, and you can see the users in both of these components. And there is only one API call, and if you hit the refresh user button, it will again hit the backend API and will update both of these users. So for example, if there was a new data in any of these APIs, and if there is any new user in the database, it would immediately reflect in these lists of users immediately. So because we are updating the stream, we got the latest data. Okay, alright, let's recap what we have learned so far. We used Json Placeholder API to create a real world example of data sharing. Then we implemented the shareReplay to cache and share HTTP responses. Then we created multiple components that share the same data stream, and we added refresh functionality to update data when needed. Thanks for watching this video. If this video was helpful, then please don't forget to like and subscribe for more Angular and RxJS tutorials. Drop your questions or feedback in the comments below.